Today, a complex and high-risk deep strike operation was executed by the Ukrainian Air Force, targeting Russian military infrastructure far behind the front lines. The mission highlighted a combination of Soviet-era aviation, Western munitions, and sophisticated tactical planning. The mission began at 2:40 p.m. local time as a lone Ukrainian Sukhoi Su-27 flanker flew at an exceptionally low altitude over the rolling landscape of Kharkiv Oblast. This formidable air superiority fighter with an estimated export cost of $30 million was being utilized as a deep strike platform. Maintaining a height of just 500 ft above the ground, the pilot employed a tactic known as terrain masking, using the Earth itself as cover to delay detections by Russian long-range air defense systems. The aircraft was headed towards the village of Petrivka, with its objective being two concrete barracks that housed a Russian motor rifle company estimated to contain approximately 120 personnel. From the very beginning, the mission was burdened with significant technical difficulties. The Su-27 was armed with American-made GBU-39 small-diameter bombs, with a single BRU-61 rack fitted with 4 GBU-39s. These modern weapon systems were not designed for the Soviet-era Su-27, requiring Ukrainian technicians to engineer custom adapters to integrate them. Flying at 450 knots, the intense turbulence of the low-level flight put these improvised mounts under constant strain, with persistent vibrations threatening the integrity of the weapon connections. This non-standard weapons load also created considerable aerodynamic drag, which had a direct impact on the aircraft's performance. The twin Al-31F engines were burning fuel at a rate 15% higher than projected during mission planning. A quick calculation by the pilot confirmed he had just enough fuel to reach the target, release the bombs, and return to base, leaving absolutely no margin for error or unforeseen delays. Navigation posed its own set of problems. In the cockpit, an iPad-based navigation system was erratically switching between GPS and GLONASS satellite signals. This conflict created a positional drift of up to 50 m in the target coordinates. At such high speed and low altitude, manual correction was impossible. The pilot planned to resolve the error during the critical pop-up attack maneuver. Adding to the complexity, the aircraft's 1980s era L-23 Gardenia electronic countermeasures pod was actively jamming X-band frequencies. This electronic noise was designed to degrade modern Russian radar systems, buying precious seconds of concealment. Approximately 120 km to the northeast, a Russian 96L6E radar, known by its NATO designation cheeseboard, performed its routine air surveillance sweeps. As a component of the S-400 air defense system, this radar has a maximum detection range of 300 km. However, the pilot's terrain masking strategy proved effective as the Su-27's radar signature was largely hidden by hills and ground clutter. The cheeseboard operator registered only brief fleeting contacts when the aircraft momentarily appeared over ridges. Inside the cockpit, the pilot's Soviet-era SBO-15 Borisova radar warning receiver emitted occasional chirps, signaling that he was being scanned. This older system lacks the ability to differentiate between a routine search scan and a direct fire control lock, forcing the pilot to fly in a constant state of high alert and uncertainty. The primary threat finally emerged when the Su-27 was 60 km from its designated pop-up point. At this distance, the S-400 system's 92N6E Gravestone fire control radar took over tracking duties from the cheeseboard. The moment the Gravestone achieved a lock, the pilot had only seconds before a potential missile launch. The intermittent chirps from the Borisova receiver escalated into a steady high-priority alarm, indicating a lock from a new threat. An SA-21 Growler acquisition radar near Belgorod had found him. His cover was blown. At the target in Petrivka, the atmosphere on the ground was relaxed. A duty officer at the Russian military base monitored routine radar activity, and the cheeseboard operator had dismissed the faint contacts as ground interference or civilian air traffic. The base's own point defense, a Pantsir S-1 system, was powered down for scheduled maintenance. Located 46 mi or about 74 km inside Russian territory, the soldiers in the barracks felt secure. With his aircraft now being actively tracked, the pilot's only viable option was to initiate the attack immediately. He pushed the throttles to full afterburner and began a steep aggressive climb. The pilot pulled back on the control stick, subjecting both himself and the aircraft to 412 gs. As the Su-27 angled upward at 60 degrees, this pop-up maneuver was a tactical necessity. The unpowered GBU-39s are glide bombs, and they require significant altitude to travel the distance to their target. The flight plan called for reaching 28,000 ft within 42 seconds to create the necessary release window. Climbing, however, exposed the aircraft to every Russian radar in the area. The Su-27's fly-by-wire system struggled to compensate for the asymmetrical and aerodynamically dirty configuration caused by the 4 250 lb American bombs. As the pilot fought to maintain control, master caution lights began to flash across the cockpit. 20 km behind him, a 48 N6E surface air missile launched from the S-400 battery, rising on a column of smoke. The missile was projected to climb to 35,000 ft before performing a terminal dive on its target at speeds approaching Mach 12. As the Su-27 ascended through the thin cold air, its left AL-31F engine suffered a compressor stall, a direct result of operating outside its designed flight envelope with such a heavy external load. The pilot's training took over instantly. He throttled the left engine back to 95%, matching it with the right. The engine surge cleared, but the incident had cost him critical time and altitude. The radar warning receiver screamed its most urgent warning. The incoming missile was just 15 seconds from impact. As the aircraft passed through 27,000 ft, ice crystals formed on the canopy, obscuring the pilot's view. He relied entirely on the artificial horizon on his head-up display. Upon reaching 28,000 ft, the pilot had to time his next move perfectly to exploit the missile's kinematic dead zone. A brief moment at the peak of its trajectory where its motor has burned out, but it has not yet begun its terminal dive. At the release altitude, a new issue surfaced on the weapons panel. 3 bombs showed green status lights, but the fourth was marked by a flickering amber light indicating a fault. This was a known grounding issue with the custom-made Ukrainian adapters. With no time to troubleshoot, he toggled the master arm switch, but the light remained amber. He made the decision to release it hot, trusting the bomb's internal logic would arm it after separation, leveling off for just 3 seconds. The pilot allowed the weapons computer to finalize its release calculations. The iPad navigation display, now stable in the smooth, high-altitude air, showed green target indicators. At 2:42 p.m., the pilot released the bombs. The first 2 GBU-39s detached from the left pylon, followed half a second later by the 2 on the right. The moment the fourth bomb separated, its amber light turned green as the disconnection completed the circuit. All 4 bombs were now gliding independently towards their targets. The instant the last bomb was clear, the pilot pushed the stick forward, initiating an aggressive negative G dive and plummeting back toward the relative safety of low altitude. The AP-50 chaff dispensers fired automatically, deploying clouds of metallic fibers designed to confuse the incoming missile seeker. Behind him, the 48 N6E missile reached its apex. Its seeker searched for a target that was now diving rapidly. By the time the missile could reorient, the Su-27 was already passing through 15,000 ft, well outside the missile's engagement envelope. Having lost its target, the missile self-destructed. While the pilot made his escape, the 4 GBU-39 small-diameter bombs began their 46-mile glide. Their diamondback wings deployed, giving them an impressive glide ratio of approximately 15:1. They now had to navigate a dense electronic warfare environment. 30 km from Petrovka, a Russian R-330 Jatel system began broadcasting powerful jamming signals, specifically targeting the L1 and L2 GPS frequencies used by many Western munitions. The bomb's internal systems performed as designed. Their receivers detected the jamming and seamlessly switched to the encrypted military L5 frequency. Although this frequency offers slightly less precision, increasing the circular error probable from 3 ft to about 10 ft, it was still more than accurate enough to strike a large building. Bomb number 2 lost its GPS signal completely. Its backup inertial navigation system took over, but INS guidance degrades over time. Its flight computer employed a common filter algorithm, comparing its last known good GPS data with its current INS position to reject corrupted data and partially compensate for the drift. The bomb's flight path was then unexpectedly obstructed by a Russian Kar-52 attack helicopter on a routine patrol. The lead bomb's radar altimeter identified the helicopter as a collision risk. In response, its onboard computer commanded a 5 degrees course correction, and the formation of 4 bombs fluidly parted, passing 200 m on either side of the unaware helicopter. At 8,000 ft, the bombs encountered a 35-knot crosswind, pushing them off course. The actuators in each bomb's tail assembly worked continuously to counteract the wind, but one bomb struggled as its actuators reached their 15 degrees deflection limit. 8 km from the target, a Tor MTU air defense system finally detected the incoming munitions. The operator saw 4 small high subsonic returns on his screen. While their radar cross-section was similar to that of birds, their speed and perfect formation were unnatural. He tagged the contacts and reported them, but the chain of command was too slow to react in time. The Zetel electronic warfare system intensified its jamming efforts, but the GBU-39's beam steering antennas successfully filtered out the noise. Bomb number 2, which had been flying on its inertial navigation system, managed to reacquire a GPS lock, and its common filter algorithm quickly refined its trajectory. Inside the barracks at Petrica, life went on as normal. In the command post, the duty officer finally received and processed the report from the Tor MTU operator. He slammed the base-wide alert button and sirens began to wail across the facility. The crew of the Panzer S-1, which had been down for maintenance, scrambled to bring their system online. The startup sequence required a minimum of 45 seconds. They had less than 30. As the 1R-21 radar began to rotate, its fire control computer was faced with an impossible tactical problem. 4 targets, each smaller than a football, moving at over 380 mph and already inside the minimum engagement range for its missiles. The system defaulted to its last line of defense, twin 2A38M30 autoc cannons. The barrels roared, firing tungsten penetrators at a combined rate of 5,000 rounds per minute. However, the GBU-39's small radar cross-section and close proximity confused the tracking computer, which engaged the center of the formation. The rounds passed harmlessly 30 m behind the lead bomb. At 2:51 p.m. and 3 seconds, the first GBU-39 impacted. Its hardened steel nose cone penetrated 2 floors of reinforced concrete before the programmable fuse detonated. The 36 lb of high explosive created an overpressure wave that liquefied concrete and vaporized steel, blowing the eastern barracks building's facade outward. 17 seconds later, the second bomb struck the western section of the same building, causing the structurally compromised structure to collapse into its own footprint. The western barracks was struck by bombs 3 and 4 almost simultaneously. The first detonated in a central stairwell, as soldiers were trying to evacuate. The second penetrated the roof, with 72 lb of explosive detonating within the same structure in under a second. The converging overpressure waves amplified each other, causing the entire building to disintegrate. In less than a minute, 2 reinforced concrete barracks were annihilated. The operation was a clear tactical success, demonstrating Ukraine's growing ability to integrate Western munitions onto Soviet-era platforms and execute complex deep strike missions. This attack serves as a stark indicator that Russian military installations, even those once considered safe in rear areas, are now vulnerable, potentially forcing a significant reassessment of Russian air defense and force distribution. If you want uncensored war updates the media won't show, subscribe now.